Hi, everyone. So we're here today to start our Learn Studio session. My name is Myra Wenzel, and I'm a program manager on the .NET team. So let's go through the agenda real quick. So today we're going to be seeing how to publish a web app to Azure using Visual Studio. And the link to the module that we're going to be doing is on the chat window. So please go ahead and click so you can follow along as we do this. So before we get started, I will do some of the welcome and introductions. Then we'll go through the module and talk about how to build ASP.NET Core applications and Visual Studio and Azure, and then we'll open up for questions. So I have an amazing team here with me. So as I said, I'm the speaker today, and I'm a program manager on the .NET team. I'm responsible for the .NET.Microsoft.com website. So if you go to download any of the .NET products, or if you go for content, specifically like our marketing content, I'm the PM behind that site. We also have Cam Soper. He's one of the moderators. He's on the docs team. Isaac Levin, he's a moderator. He's from the Azure marketing team. And then Scott Eddy is the other moderator. He's from the ASP.NET Core docs team. So I have this amazing team here with me. So hopefully will be a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys will learn a lot from. Everyone will learn a lot about Azure and ASP.NET Core. And you can find us on Twitter as well. So here are our handles if you want to reach out to us later on. So this session will be recorded, so you will be posted after for people to watch on demand. If you have questions, use the chat window, and then our moderators will be going through and answering the questions or sending the questions over to me. And please pay attention to our code of conduct. We're going to be pasting on the chat, but we want to create an event and an environment that is respectful and friendly to everyone. And so we do not tolerate harassment and discrimination of any form. And so there is a hotline or an email that you can reach out if there are any questions or concerns. So everybody just join the aka.ms learn publish web app, and you will see the module that we're going to be going through. And so here's our module. But before we dive into, I wanted to talk a little bit about Learn and what is this, like what we're doing today. So Learn is a Microsoft platform that allows you to learn about Microsoft products in a very on a very broad sense of products. So you have Office 365 or Azure, .NET. You have tons of lessons and modules, and it's all like interactive for you to go at your own pace and learn about our technologies. You can find different learning paths and different modules. So you can go and do individual modules, or you can start and choose different learning paths, which is like set of modules related to a certain subject. So for example, if you want to learn about Azure fundamentals, there is one path here that you can take, and we'll give you a set of lessons recommended for that path that you can go through. There are a few cool things for in terms of features here. You can bookmark lessons as you go through and find things that are interesting you. So you can go and see on your profile when you create a Learn profile, you will see things that you bookmark here. So I have bookmarked the session that we're going to be doing today. You can also create collections, which is as you have maybe you're working on a project or you have a team that is developing some sort of training, and you can create these catalogs of lessons that you can share with your team or with friends that in terms of what lessons are interesting in you, and you create several different collections. And as you finish lessons, you will earn badges and achievements on Learn. So this is the ones that I took on my personal account. So this is like a very brief explanation of Learn. And then the lessons can vary in terms of being totally online. And so we'll have certain lessons, and you guys know better than I do in terms of which ones have like Cloud Shell or the VS Code embedded. But I think if I select ASP.NET Core, there's one about Web API, right?
Yep, that one, Myra.
Yeah, so this one, Cam and Scott have worked on to create this module. And it's like totally online. You don't even have to install anything. The one that we're gonna be doing today it's a mix. It's you go through the lesson, but you have to install, because it requires Visual Studio. You have to install certain things on your machine. So let's get started with the module. Okay, so the prereqs that were listed in the beginning of the slide as well is basic knowledge of the Azure cloud environment, being familiar with Visual Studio 2019 and some web app concepts, and then basic programming knowledge and basic HTML knowledge, and then a local installation of Visual Studio. Today we launched 16.6. And so this is the one I'm going to be using for going through the demo. So today we're going to be building an app, which is like a marketing app for a ski resort application. So your team has developed a new application for people to see trail maps and purchase lift tickets on your website and from their mobile phones. And so we're going to be creating a complement website to what they've advertised the app. And so because you are a Visual Studio developer, we're going to be using Visual Studio 2019, which is the latest, to create, deploy, and manage your website from end to end. So this combination of Visual Studio and Azure makes it a very powerful mechanism for creating and publishing and maintaining your web apps. And so today we're going to be doing is create an ASP.NET Core web app, then publish to Azure inside Visual Studio, and then updating and seeing this changes. We're going to publish to Azure again and seeing these changes in Azure. So we went already over the prereqs. So I want to make sure that people can follow along. So please comment if you need some time to follow along, or if I'm going too fast. And so to develop ASP.NET Core applications, you need certain workloads in Visual Studio. So workloads are kind of sets of, it allows you to configure your Visual Studio installation to customize it. So if you were to install all the workloads, it would take a lot of space on your machine. And so with that, with workloads, you can say, oh, I only care about ASP.NET Core and not about C++. So it has certain packages that is kind of that contains like different products and SDKs and things that you will need to develop for that. So let's get started with that. So I will open the Visual Studio installer. And so we can take a look at my installations, and sort of the workloads that I have installed. So I have several versions of Visual Studio installed. So one nice thing about Visual Studio is that you can run them side by side. So you can have like an enterprise version, a community version, or like I'm running the preview one that was launched today as well. So all side by side. So I'm going to be using the latest stable one, which is 16.6. So I'm going to click modify to look at the workloads I have. Okay, so here you can see that I have installed ASP.NET and web development. I have Azure. So these are the two required for today's module. And then the others are workloads that I have installed for different reasons. So I have Xamarin installed and .NET Core, but the ones that we need for today, so make sure that ASP.NET and Azure are checked. And as you click to install new things, it will show you like what would be installed with that particular workload and then how much space it requires. You can also look at individual components that are installed and then select different things that you might need. So for example, some things that you will only find here on the individual components is the help viewer. So if you need documentation offline on your Visual Studio, you would have to go install help viewer individually here. Since I'm all set up for getting started, I'll just close this without installing anything, and I'll just go ahead and launch Visual Studio. So this is what we just did. All right, so let's create our ASP.NET Core project. So I will put the lesson and Visual Studio side by side so you can see. Close this. So I will hit create. Let me put here. Here. So there's a few different options. It shows like what are your like recent projects when you're opening up. And so we're gonna go ahead and say that we want to create a new project. Now it's thinking. Hopefully it will respond soon. It's taking longer than usual. Should do like cut to do. Oh, come on, Visual Studio. Okay, I'll wait until I'll try again. Okay, it'll load up. Okay, so it shows here your recent project templates. And so I'll hit web. Let me go follow along here so you guys can read. So we are going to choose ASP.NET Core Web Application. So here you can see that this template will have, and make sure that you select the core one because there's also a .NET framework depending on the workloads you have installed. So this one, it says it's for cloud, it's C#, Linux, macOS, so it's a cross-platform. You can run on Windows, on Mac, and Linux. So let's hit next. And then our project name will be Alpine Ski House. And then location, you can leave the default location or switch to a preferred one. And then you can leave the solution in the same. And so we're gonna hit create. Okay, so when you're creating the app, we're gonna get a couple of different options. So here you can choose what is your target. So we want .NET Core. And then here you have a drop down of the different versions that you have to use on your as a target. So we are going to use the latest ASP.NET Core 3.1. And then you get several different templates here. And the default web application is ASP.NET Razor Pages. It's easier to get started, and Razor is built on top of MMPC, but I think it's a simpler model, so it's like our default for web applications. But you can choose other templates depending if you're building spa applications, or you can just start from an empty project and then build from scratch. We're not going to be adding authentication because it adds some level of complexity that we were not going to deal with it now. We do want to make sure that it is the default, but make sure that it's configured for HTTPS. So it's secure from development until it hits deployment. We're not going to be dealing with Docker at this point. So just select web application, create. So it's going to be loading. Hopefully it's not going to take too long. So let me put it to the side again. Okay, so when it loads, you can see it has some helpful links here in the dashboard to get you started. So it has links to documentation and things like that. So what we're going to do is just simply run the template that we have started that comes for free with the plan. So here we have a couple of options when you're going to run. So you have IIS Express, which is the one we're going to be using, but you could also have different options here, like Alpine Ski House. If you select that, you would use Kestrel, and you also have an option for that spaces, but we're just going to go ahead and use IIS Express. So you can hit F5 or Control F5 and then load the application. I think it's still loading. Let me open it up here. Let me try again. I don't know what's going on. So here you can see in the output that build has started. Let me erase this. Okay, now it worked. Yeah, and I see that we got questions about the installation. So yeah, it does take like each one has individual sets, and so it's going to be like each one will take space on your machine. So this is our the template that it comes. It has a home page and a privacy page, and so we can close, and we have a delivery now. So let's go back to our lesson. So let's continue. All right. So what we are going to be using for publishing to Azure, it's called Azure App Service. So Azure App Service is a hosting for web applications, for REST APIs and backend services. So it's very flexible and you can scale out as much as you need. It supports like .NET Core, .NET Framework, Java, Ruby, Node, PHP, Python. So it's not only for .NET, you can use other languages to host your web application on App Service. And then we have what we call the App Service Plan. So App Service Plan is kind of like your computer in the cloud, or is like your web farm there. So it's going to define your compute resources for your web applications for your Azure App Service. So you're going to want to define the region, so where it's going to run, the number of VM instances, the size of them, and then the pricing. So as you continue to grow your traffic or the number of resources that you need, then you can go and increase, and you can scale up and down as much as you need, and it's instant. So for region, you do want to publish your service where you think that that you're on the region or the location where it's going to be hosted. So if your customers are on a specific location, you like if you are in a country in Europe or in South America, then you can deploy to a region closer to where you expect your customers to be. And then for pricing and reliability levels, so we have shared compute, which is you have free and you have shared compute. And for those, you're going to be sharing the resources with other apps from other customers. So free, it's completely free. And I have this this Azure.microsoft.com free.net page here to show a little bit. So you can sign up with Azure for free, and you get 12 months of free services, and then $200 credits, and then 25 plus services that are always going to be free. And so you have here detailing what are some of the things. And so one of them is app service. It's going to always be free. You have a limit of how much you can do, but if you want to just play around and do some tests, it's a great offer. And then you have dedicated compute. So you have levels from basic to standard, premium, premium V2. So these are ones that you're not going to be sharing the resource computes with other customers. It's going to be dedicated Azure VMs. And then basic is more for like dev test environments. And then standard would be best suited for your production workloads. And then as your demand and capacity increases, you can go to premium and premium V2. So you get more VMs and more power as you go up. And then isolated, it's the highest tier. And so you have dedicated Azure VMs. So if you need to isolate certain resources per region, or you need to have like dedicated resources for an app that is separated from your other apps in the plan that you have, then you can create an isolated plan. And then you're going to specify the resource group. And so the resource group is your logical container that will contain like databases, blob storage. So you're going to logically put things around your resources for your app on Azure. And so we're going to show that in a second. All right, so on Learn, one of the things that it's cool is that you get a sandbox. So I already used 5 sandboxes for today. I've been playing around a lot on Learn. And so we can go ahead and activate the sandbox. So it's creating the resource group, it's creating that subscription that will allow us to publish the app we just created to Azure. All right, so the sandbox is created now. And we're gonna have, or I am gonna have 4 hours to use it with on Visual Studio or on the portal, so I can explore that a little bit. So let's now again put it side by side so you can see. My mouse is not helping me. Okay. So to publish from Visual Studio to Azure is super simple. So we are gonna right click on the project and hit publish, select publish. Oh, okay, publish. And then we were gonna want to choose Azure as our option. You're gonna see there are a couple of different options for publishing, including IIS if you're gonna be doing it on a server, or can just create a folder for publishing, like creating a publish target and then deploying somewhere else. But we are gonna go ahead with Azure, click next. And then we're gonna select Azure App Service Windows. There's also an app service running in Linux. But because it doesn't allow for us to use the share hosting model, we're gonna go with Windows. So now it's checking my subscriptions. Let me switch to the account I'm using there. And so if everything went all right with so you should be using, make sure you're using the Learn account and on VS, the same account here on Visual Studio. And then you should see the concierge subscription that that Learn created for you. And then we're gonna want to hit create a new Azure app service. It's super slow today. So it's loading my subscription, and then we're gonna want to enter a name, and we're gonna keep the subscription that we chose on the previous page. And then we're gonna select a resource group. So we're gonna be using, so when we created the sandbox, Microsoft Learn already created a resource group for our resources. And then we're gonna use the shared hosting plan. So remember that we cover free, shared, and then the other pricing tiers. So we're going to be using a shared subscription or hosting while his shared plan. Hopefully it's going to load. And I don't have cute talks to show you today. Oh my God, it's taking so long. Okay. So I will leave just the default name, but it just needs to be a unique name. And then you have the resource good group as the default. And then we are gonna follow here the steps, and we're gonna use a share plan. So we're gonna create a new one. So for the size, we're gonna use shared. Click OK. So I click new here to create a new host. Oh, sorry. I want West US because I'm in Seattle. And hit create. So now after several seconds, so if it's going slower than usual here, hopefully won't take too long, but it will show a dialog where we can publish to Azure. So we should be super close to seeing our app published to Azure in a second. Let's see what's going on. Okay. And then I can click finish. Then I'll wait for the dialog to show up. Okay, so let's maximize here. So now I have here our the site URL, and so I can just hit publish now, and we'll publish to Azure. And there are other configurations here that you can do. So you can choose whether you want the development or release mode. You can also choose the deployment mode. So I'll try to show that. So you can select framework dependent, which will be a smaller footprint because you're going to be used a shared framework install on the machine, or you can do self-contained. So here is the same app now running on Azure. And so here you can change the deployment mode. So there here are a couple of options that you can choose. So debug or release. Here we have self-contained or framework dependent. So the self-contained would embed the framework, like the .NET Core, with your application. And so it depends on what your needs are. If you just want to have one installation of .NET Core on your machine and not deal with separate apps having their own version, then you would go with framework dependent, or self-contained. It would contain the .NET Core with it. And so it allows you to control your update path. So maybe one application can be running on 3.1 and the other can still be on 2.2 or something like that. So let's close and continue. Okay, so here we're gonna take a look at the project structure for Razor pages. So let's take a look here, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. I won't do it, and I won't touch it anything. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this, but let me try again to zoom in. And let me see if I have anything consuming here. I have just these apps, but like crazy memory here. I don't know what's going on, but let's see. So let's try to go over here. So one of the things you'll see is www.root. So this is the place for you to put your static files. So your CSS files, your icons, images will go into the www.root folder. Here on properties, you can see launch settings, for example, and you can configure, like you can see the different published profiles. So before, you might have noticed when we were running on IIS, that was running on a specific port. So it's configured here on launch settings. Then programs.cs is your entry point for your application. So this is where it starts. And then the startup configures certain things. So you can see here, like the call to add Razor pages and map Razor pages. So it's building on top of MSC and adding the Razor functionality. And then the very important folder here on Razor is the pages. So it shows the content and it will define the path for your application. So you will see that index, for example, is the home page that we loaded before. Let me see if I still have it open. So let me go to the publish again, just to show. So this is what we published before. So this is the index page. So this is your root. And every time that you don't specify a path, it will use the index file. And then here for so if you do /privacy, I can't type. Then you will load that page. Then you have here on share, you have layout, which defines kind of the structure for the pages. So let me, as soon as it opens. So here you can see render body. So everything else here is the navigation that goes around the page. So let's go back here. So like the menu, the footer, it's all defined in the layout. And then render body here will call into the different pages. So the content from each page here will render inside the render body method. So this part here is what's gonna render inside there. And so the Razor pages themselves, they're gonna be a pair of files. So it's gonna be the CS HTML, and then the code behind will be the CS HTML.cs. Let me see if I forgot to cover anything. And then the Razor template. So we are using a Razor syntax here. So it allows you to mix and match HTML with C# code. So let's take a look at that. So here's the home page. You have page here, at page, which determines that it's a Razor page. And then the next one, the next line defines at model, and then it's linking this UI to the code behind file. So this is the name of the class for the code behind index model. And then you have here certain metadata. So like here, we're setting the title equals home page. And then you can see, let's see, now I open quickly, and you can see that you will use that information that we're putting into that metadata, like here, view data title, to as the title metadata in the page. And then here's the code. So you could start, for example, adding other content here that mixes C# and HTML. But let's do something simple. Something like that. So you can do if statements or have code that it mixes and matches the HTML with C#. And so here it's showing like it says the contact. We're gonna update that, but let's say that the privacy page here already came with some it's already using on the H1 some of the metadata there. All right, so we're gonna publish an update to the page. So we already did one update that was off script to the index page. And so now we are going to do, we're gonna open the privacy page and we're gonna add this to the bottom. We're gonna replace that with this. So let's find our privacy. Save it, and then we're gonna do, we're gonna put that in our homepage. Okay, and then we are gonna go ahead and publish that again and view our changes in Azure. So you could continue to run locally on IIS, or you can choose to publish and use Azure. One thing to think about this is that this is great for when you're like beginning to test an application, you're like just trying out something on your machine and you're like working by yourself. But I would say that this method of publishing directly from Visual Studio is not a recommended way once you get into like a production site where you're going to be working with a team, because what you want to do is set up like a CI/CD pipeline on Azure. So like continuous integration, continuous deployment, where you're going to merge, you're going to test and get your changes validated before you publish. Because here we're hitting publish, and whatever it's there, it's gonna be pushed live. So if you broke something, if you added a bad change, you're not catching that. You're just going straight to Azure. Okay, so here we added a change. And so here on the server, the Azure server using is 11 p.m. at night. I guess I didn't pick the right one, but anyway. But there you have it. We have our changes. So this is the end of the module, but we can continue to discuss and get answer questions, and I can show a little some other things on the portal and what you can do with Azure and with Razor. So, but this is the end of this module. So once you finish, because this one I had already done, so I already have the achievement, but you can unlock the achievement once you finish. And then once you click continue to next module, then you can start a new one. So this one is completely different subject. So this is the end of our lesson, but then I can take questions. Let me see if there's something, or I can continue to show some things.
So we've had some, Myra, this is Cam. We've had some fantastic questions so far, and I just wanted to echo what Scott said. Please, if there are any other questions, please keep them coming.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to, I don't know what's happening, that it's not responding very well, my machine. So bizarre. Okay, so let me try. I'm trying to scroll here. So is there any questions that you would like to relate to me, since I'm not being able to scroll right now?
Well, actually, I think we've had some questions. We had some questions earlier about a lot of folks were really interested. They didn't realize that you could have multiple versions of Visual Studio installed on your machine at once, and they were asking questions about if that takes up, a lot of space for each of those and so forth. So we explained to them that those sit side by side. Oh, here we go. Here's a good question for you, Myra. It was actually just posted. What are your personal IDE choices for working with Azure resources?
So I can talk a little bit. So our production environment for the .NET.Microsoft.com website is Razor Pages. So I can even show that a little bit. Let me open on a new project and maybe I can share that. But I use Visual Studio most of the time, sometimes a mix of Visual Studio Code. But we do have pipelines set up with GitHub. So we push we test locally usually, and then we push our changes to GitHub. I can show, although it's going to be, it's a private repo, so you're not going to be able to see, but you're gonna see, you can see the, let's see if it, so this one is a little bit old. We set up some of the new things. So here, I'm testing some of security changes here, but so we do have a pipeline that runs and checks if it validates our changes before it goes to production. And then we have 3 environments. So we have dev, staging, and production, where where we can test things. So before it hits production, then we test on the event stages. So like this morning, I woke up early to ship the preview 4 and 3.1 for release. And so, so yeah, I first tested on test and staging. But we do use Visual Studio as my main ID. Sorry, it was a very long way.
Can I add something to that, Myra?
Yeah, sure.
So I had responded in the chat, but I think it's important to call out that because this is ASP.NET Core we're working with here, we really have a lot of freedom, more freedom than we had, say, with .NET Framework. Some IDEs or editors that you could use here would be Visual Studio, as we're using here, Visual Studio for Mac, which some folks maybe haven't heard of, and then Visual Studio Code, which is our lightweight code editor. Those three would work equally well for an ASP.NET Core project. As far as seamless integration, though, to Azure services, my personal preference is actually what Myra is using here, full-blown Visual Studio on Windows.
Yeah, sometimes. Go ahead, Cam.
Oh, I was just going to chime in with that too. So Scott mentioned Visual Studio Code as the lightweight editor. It's also cross-platform, so as is .NET Core. So you can take Visual Studio Code and .NET Core, and you can have your whole tool chain on Mac OS or Linux. In fact, we know several people who do all of their .NET Core development in Ubuntu Linux, for example.
Yeah, and I saw earlier a question. I'm still having issues getting to the Q&A, so you guys help me navigate that. But I saw a question asking between .NET Core and .NET Framework. And so I think it's important as we're moving forward with .NET Core, and the next version will be .NET 5, which is an evolution of .NET Core. That .NET Framework was our previous product. You could do web forms and other kind, and the other, you could do still MVC with that one, right? I missed a period. I went like I think I did Framework like way back when, and now Core. But and then I think like so the innovation, all the changes are coming to .NET Core. So that's what, if you're starting new projects, that's what we recommend. And then if it's cross-platform, as Scott mentioned earlier, there's a tons of investment in performance, so it's super fast. We have like the benchmarks and things like that would do super well with ASP.NET Core. And so that's the path moving forward. So Framework, it's still supported, so you can still use it. And if you have projects that you're still maintaining, you can still use it. It's fine. Just our recommendation for new projects is use .NET Core and .NET 5 when it comes in November. And I think the other thing is that so .NET Core 3.1 is our LTS version, so it's our long-term support version. So it's for 3 years that it is supported, and then .NET 5 will not be on LTS. So for enterprise customers that care a lot about the LTS, that don't want to be constantly changing their versions, they might want to wait until .NET 6, which will be our next LTS version. So, okay, let's see what else we have here.
One other thing I'll add to that while Myra's glancing at the chat. Something you weren't able to do with .NET Framework is install versions of the framework side by side on the same machine. You can finally do that now with .NET Core, which for me, that's a huge advantage. I think back to, doing software development for large enterprises, and we would upgrade to the latest version of .NET Framework, and it may have broken one or more of our applications. we're safeguarded now from that scenario with .NET Core because of the side-by-side installation support.
Yeah, and that's like what I was kind of trying to cover here with the deployment modes. So if you want the side-by-side with the app having its own version of .NET Core, you can select a self-contained. And then framework dependent will use the one that is broadly available on the machine. But you have control over that. So it will depend on your infrastructure and how you want to do your DevOps and your updates. Then you might choose one versus the other. Let's see. Are there any other interesting ones? Otherwise, we can show a few things on the portal as well. Exploring the subscription that we just got from Learn for a few hours. Okay, let me try to do some things here then.
Actually, you know, Myra, you know what I think might be helpful? Yep, there you go. You're way ahead of me.
That's what I said. So yeah. But yeah, go ahead and suggest. I don't know what you were thinking. Like.
No, I was just going to say, hey, let's go look at the resources in the portal. But you're already there.
Yeah, because I think we can show like the resource groups that we were talking about and what it's inside it. So here you can see that it's on the Microsoft Learn Sandbox subscription. So this will disappear. So this morning I didn't have any, so I joined here and it's like, hey, you have nothing, so you cannot do anything. And let's see if it will load, hopefully. And I even asked the entire family not to use anything, no devices, no TV, no anything for them. I don't know why it's taking so long. This is not Azure, it's probably my machine, so. So here you can see the subscription. And then inside the subscription, you can see the app service, which is the app, and then the plan that we like, so where we're hosting, and then the storage account. So let's go here on the app service, explore a little bit. So one thing that I really like as well for our application, so I've been diving into this, trying to improve the quality of our marketing site, is the application insights. So let's see if we can turn it on and see if we can. So we want .NET Core and up. Let's see. And so what is nice is that you can see like the traffic, you can see if there's any failures happening. So any exceptions that are being thrown by your application, and you can start monitoring that way. So let's see. So I'll hit this. And then let's go here. So now we can start like tracking live metrics, for example, for our website. And so we can see like, I put like a 4 or something so we can see. So I'll hit here my website. Let's see if it's doing, yeah, so like here, the request incoming. So I'll put like something wrong. And then you're gonna see like, oh, now I got a 404 here. And so you can start to dig more into the failures, and you can put filters if you want to see like what happened on the 24 hours. It takes a while to show up in this view, so that's why interesting if you want to see like live, to go to the live metrics. So that's another service from Azure that I personally use a lot. What else could be interesting? And then I could show a little bit of Razor. And so one thing, for example, that I think could be interesting is, let's see. So one thing that you can see here is when you have exceptions. And then I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about auth and cover a little bit of that.
Were you with? Oh, I think we just lost Scott. I was gonna say, were you looking at us to do that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was looking at one of these other questions. What was the context, Myra?
No, if you wanted to talk a little bit about auth, like, and I'm not expert on that, so I was looking at my expert fellows here too.
So one of the great things about auth when you're doing ASP.NET Core in Azure is that you can actually offload the auth to Azure. Do you know where those settings are, Myra? Because I can, if you go back to the portal, do you still have the portal open?
Yeah, I do have it.
So if you go back to the portal, and back to the web app resource, that authentication authorization node there under settings, you can actually turn on authentication at the Azure App Service level, right? So you don't even have to worry about it within your ASP.NET Core application. You can just tell Azure, hey, I want you to allow anonymous, or the other choices she'll have there will be, I can't remember what the choices are, but you can configure.
Let's open them.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there you go. Or you can log in with any of those. If any non-authenticated request comes through, you can redirect it to log in with any of those providers. There's some setup that has to be done here, and those providers all require something. Well, I can't say definitively all. I've done a lot with Azure Active Directory and Microsoft account. I've not actually done anything with Facebook, but I know they do require you to you have to set up the app on Facebook to get like an app ID. I would presume the same is true with Google and Twitter. But yeah, you can just really easily add social network authentication right through the Azure portal without having to write a line of code.
Really cool. Yeah, because the .NET side, we don't have any login, so I've never done that part. I think we could also show, so here, for example, is some of the error handling. So when you're in developer mode, it will show you more details if you hit an exception. So I thought maybe I could force an exception. I'll add the link to provoke an exception, and then we can take a look.
Oh, and then yeah, let's force an exception, because you could show that in App Insights too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's so I'll add here a link to. So I'll handle here, and we'll say, okay, so I have a link here that will do this, and then on the back end, so on get. So I'm gonna check if there's any parameter on on GATT. So this is another interesting thing about Razor. So the template pages come with on GATT. So when you have the GATT verb, so when you're, you can also add the on post when you're doing this. So let's HTTP request. And we have IntelliCode helping me along the way. So I want to throw, and then I'm gonna do, I'll just throw a new exception. So I'm forcing, this is not good practice, folks, but it's just for demo purposes.
And by good practices, I'm sure you're just referring to using, you know, just the generic exception base class, right? Because best practice
Yes.
is to use a derived exception.
Yes, no, that's not good in any sense. I'm just forcing it. So we're publishing again. So here we're just pushing to Azure straight from Visual Studio, and you can see how it's interconnected. Still publishing. Let's see if my thing will work or not work. So I'm going to throw the exception. Let's see. And then let's go to our apping sites as well. Maybe I should have done that before I went so I could catch it.
So you can catch it in the live stream.
Yeah.
Because
I can do it again.
When for our viewers and attendees, when you are when you start looking at application insights, one thing to bear in mind is application insights takes I'd say 3 to 5 minutes to ingest telemetry into a viewable format that you can view, like historical, this is when an exception happened. But the live stream that she was showing us earlier, that happens instantaneously. So if she were to go look at the live stream and throw this exception, we should see that event pop up as it happens.
Yeah, so let's try again. So, and so, okay, view data, then I go to my insights. And so here, you can see that it loaded the error page. So that's the source for the error page. And then it has some text about development mode, because in the startup, as you can see, there was 2 modes, and so it shows this page if you're in production mode, and then on development mode, it does have more information for you to debug it while you're testing. So let's start again and see if we can do, and then we want the live metrics. So let's see. So I'll do it again, and I'll throw an exception. Let's see if it connected already. Yeah, so it captures that exception. And then once it's available under failures, I think it takes a while for the live metrics to start showing up under the failures log. Then you can start looking at like the mapping. Oh no, yeah, I can see here. So I have a 500 error here and a 404. So you can start digging into this data and seeing where people were hitting from, what is the path, and really like looking at the insights for your application and making updates and improvements. So it's something I'm really digging lately, that I've been learning tons of things.
And if I can make one more comment on that, Myra,
Mm-hmm.
the cool thing about Application Insights that I want everybody out there to remember is she didn't change any code, right? She just went into her app service settings and flipped a button to turn this on. And now
Yeah.
she can go into like that live metrics, and she can get a view of the CPU usage and the memory usage and how the response times and all that. She gets all that for free. That just happens, and all she had to do was turn on a toggle.
Yeah, and I think you can also use the SDK, install it on Visual Studio to have like more in-depth data for your like debugging sessions. But if you don't need it and you're just looking at this, you saw that I just enable right away, and it's now I have all the logging, and you can look at it, the exceptions happening, and then you can see the stack trace and that kind of thing. Let's see. Yeah, and so as Isaac was saying, like this module is part of a collection of lessons. So feel free to take a look at all these lessons that is part of the build collection. And there are some interesting sessions, a part of Learn sessions. So take a look. I don't know if they are all full at this point, but there is the Blazor. So there are tons of interesting Lesson Studio, Learn Studio sessions happening at Build that you can check it out. And we also gonna have Cam and Brady doing sessions on other time zones if you want to check that out as well. And each one of us will have different takes and different things that we'll be showing. So and let me see. Yeah, and since like I was part of the docs team, and Cam and Scott are currently part of the docs team, I have a very heavy bias towards our sites. So there are tons of good resources for you to explore more. So we have docs, and we have for Razor, I would recommend ASP.NET. So we have ASP.NET, and you can explore if you're creating web APIs, if you're creating Blazor or Razor, you can see that I went all over.
Hey, Myra, can you show
Yeah.
.NET/Azure too?
Yes, that's what I was gonna do next. It's like you're reading my mind. And then here, like this is an awesome page. And Cam and Shane work together to put some of our resources for .NET and Azure. So you can learn more about ASP.NET Core with App Service, and then using like an Azure SQL database. So starting to add more information into this. So lots of resources here. And you can also go to .NET, and you will find information how to download the SDK and get started in building web apps in Azure. There's also a cool thing on architecture where we have free ebooks for everyone, so you can choose your topic and take a look into the different subjects we have available. So yeah, there are tons of resources, and so thank you everyone for joining today. And please, I think they're gonna drop a link for survey, so please let us know how we can improve this, or if there's anything that you liked or disliked. So let us know how we went. And thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoy. Take care. Thank you.